Have you ever met someone so determined to wield their tiny shred of power that they'd risk everything just to feel superior for a moment? In the quiet mountain town of Pine Hollow, where the air smelled of cedar and the nights were so still you could hear the stars, Karen Mulberry was a name that sparked dread. Her face, round and perpetually flushed, seemed locked in a scowl that could curdle milk. She wasn't just heavy-set. She carried her weight like a weapon, stomping through the community with a clipboard and a sneer, her eyes glinting with the thrill of control. Karen was the self-appointed enforcer of the Pine Hollow Cabin Association, a volunteer role she treated like a divine mandate. Every blade of grass too long, every porch light too bright, every mailbox slightly askew slap a fine on it faster than you could say homeowners' rights. My wife, Elena, and I had moved to Pine Hollow for peace. Our cabin, a modest cedar A-frame nestled among pines, was our sanctuary from the chaos of D.C. Elena, a federal judge, craved the silence of the mountains to balance the weight of her courtroom. She was calm, measured, her dark eyes sharp with wisdom but warm with kindness. I'm just a history professor, content to grade papers by the fire while she read case files. We kept to ourselves, waved politely to neighbors, and never caused a stir. But Karen didn't care for quiet lives. She thrived on conflict, and we were about to become her latest target. It started with a trash can. Our cabin's garbage bin, a sturdy metal one, sat at the end of our gravel drive, as per association rules. One crisp October morning, I found a neon yellow citation taped to it. Improper waste management lid not fully secured. $50 fine. I laughed at first, thinking it was a prank. The lid was down, the bin was locked, and no raccoon could have gotten in if it tried. But the citation bore Karen's jagged signature, and I knew this was no joke. Elena, sipping coffee in her robe, glanced at the paper and shrugged. "Pay it," she said. "It's not worth the fight." So I did. $50 to keep the peace. 2 weeks later, another citation, unauthorized exterior modification bird feeder detected. $75 fine. Our small wooden bird feeder, hung on a low branch for the chickadees, was apparently a crime against Pine Hollow's aesthetic code. I grit my teeth, wrote the check, and took the feeder down. Elena's calm began to fray. "She's testing us," she murmured, her judge's instincts kicking in. But still, she urged restraint. Let her tire herself out. Karen didn't tire. She escalated. By November, we'd racked up fines for excessive leaf accumulation, $30, non-approved doormat color, $40, an unreported guest vehicle, $60, when my brother visited for a weekend. Each time, Karen's meaty hand delivered the citation, her lips curling into a smug grin as she waddled back to her golf cart. I started to wonder if she parked outside our cabin at night, binoculars trained on our property, waiting for a blade of grass to grow too long. The breaking point came on a snowy December evening. Elena and I were decorating our Christmas tree, the cabin glowing with warmth, when a sharp knock rattled the door. There stood Karen, her parka straining at the seams, a citation clutched in her mittened hand. Illegal outdoor lighting-colored bulbs prohibited, $100 fine. She thrust the paper at me, her breath puffing in the cold air like a dragon's. Our porch had a single string of red and green lights, barely visible from the road. I felt my temper flare, but Elena stepped forward, her voice low and steady. "Karen, this is excessive. The rules don't ban holiday lights." Karen's eyes narrowed, her jowls quivering with indignation. "The rules ban disruptive lighting, and I decide what's disruptive. Pay the fine, or I'll escalate this to the board." She turned on her heel, leaving us in the snow-dusted silence. Elena's face was unreadable, but I saw the spark in her eyes, the same spark I'd seen in court when she was about to dismantle a weak argument. "Enough," she said. "Let's handle this." The next morning, Elena called a lawyer friend, not to fight the fine but to dig into the association's bylaws. What she found was a goldmine. Karen had been overstepping her authority for years, issuing fines without board approval, pocketing administrative fees that didn't exist in the rulebook. Elena drafted a letter to the board, calm but razor-sharp, demanding an audit of Karen's actions. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Enter Tom, the twist in our tale. Tom was Karen's nephew, a lanky, nervous man in his 30s who'd moved into her cabin that fall. He worked as a part-time handyman, quiet and unassuming. always lingering in Karen's shadow. One evening, as I shoveled snow from our drive, Tom appeared, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "I heard about the lights," he mumbled, glancing over his shoulder. "Aunt Karen's out of control. She's been skimming fines for years. I've seen the receipts." His voice trembled, but there was steel in it. "I'll testify if you take her to court." I was stunned. Karen's own nephew, turning on her? Tom explained how she'd bullied him into silence, threatening to cut him out of her will. But he'd had enough. Her reign of terror wasn't just hurting us. It was tearing apart the whole community. Neighbors had been too scared to speak up, but Tom's confession lit a spark. Elena, ever the strategist, saw the opportunity. "We don't just want her stopped," she said. "We want her to face consequences." The showdown came at the Pine Hollow Association's annual meeting, held in the community lodge. Karen sat at the front, her clipboard a scepter, her scowl daring anyone to challenge her. Elena, in a tailored blazer, stood to address the room. She didn't mention her judgeship. Elena never flaunted her title, but her presence commanded silence. She laid out the evidence: Karen's unauthorized fines, her doctored expense reports, the fees she'd pocketed. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Tom, pale but resolute, stood to confirm it all, producing a folder of receipts he'd secretly copied. Karen's face went from red to purple. "This is slander," she bellowed, slamming her fist on the table. "You can't prove a thing." But Elena was ready. She projected a blown-up copy of the bylaws, highlighting Karen's violations in crisp, legal precision. The room turned on her. Neighbors, emboldened by Tom's courage, began sharing their own stories of Karen's petty tyranny, fines for non-existent infractions, threats to lien their homes. The board, cornered, voted to remove Karen as enforcer on the spot. You'd think that would be the end, but karma had one last twist. Karen, humiliated and desperate to save face, doubled down. She filed a formal complaint with the county, accusing Elena of abusing her authority to intimidate the association. She didn't know who she was targeting. When the county clerk received the complaint, it landed on the desk of a friend of Elena's from law school. The complaint was laughed out of the office. Elena's reputation as a federal judge was ironclad. But Karen's stunt caught the attention of a local prosecutor who began digging into her financial records. Turns out, those administrative fees weren't just unethical, they were embezzlement. By spring, Karen's cabin was up for sale. She faced criminal charges, her reign of terror reduced to a cautionary tale whispered among the pines. Elena and I hung our Christmas lights again, brighter this time, and invited Tom over for dinner. He'd found a new job, free of his aunt's shadow, and the community began to heal. Karen thought she could bully her way to power, but she forgot one thing. Justice doesn't bend to a clipboard and a scowl. It bends to those who stand their ground, armed with truth and a touch of courage. Yendi.